President Trump has been recently sparring, if you will, with activist judges in the judicial system regarding various policies from his administration. And we've seen many of them just in the past couple of days. Judges have blocked his attempt to dismantle USAID. They've stepped in the way of his attempts to deport Venezuelan gang members. And most recently, we've seen an attempt to block Trump's administrative executive order that people diagnosed with gender dysphoria are unfit to join the military. So are these rulings sound? Or are activist judges trying to overstep authority and dictate policy through the bench? Well, here to answer these questions is Jeremy Dice. He's a senior counsel and chair of the Education and Religious Institution Practice Groups at First Liberty Institute. Jeremy, welcome back to Washington Watch. Appreciate you joining us.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. Good to be back.
All right, so let's start with the ruling on the military order. What are the specifics in this ruling? What does it ultimately do?
Well, right now it puts pause on the president's agenda, which seems to be out of step with where most of Americans are going, including most of corporate America right now. Everybody seems to be dismantling their DEI policies across the country and running away from some of these issues. But now we have the judiciary stepping into maybe areas where they ought not to be stepping in, questioning whether or not this president is able to carry out his agenda. And so thankfully, at the very least, while this decision, I think, is the wrong decision to have been made, it at least gives some time before its implementation to allow the Department of Justice to seek, or the Department of Defense through the Department of Justice, to seek an appeal of that decision and move this case further up the line and in a quicker manner. At a minimum, look, I'm a litigator. I'm an appellate advocate as well. I certainly like it when judges make quick decisions that allow me to go up on appeal rather quickly, rather than allow our cases to sit there and languish for long periods of time. And so perhaps that's the silver lining within the black cloud that is this decision. But again, I think it's something that we ought to be concerned about as a country, where the United States of America voted very clearly to be opposed to the Biden agenda and the leftward tilt of this nation to insist upon a reordering of gender, an upside downing of gender entirely in all of the areas of society, but most especially within the military, whose job it is to go break things and kill our enemies. And instead, the social engineering that has been out there for so long is one that ought to be left to the experts of the Department of Defense through this president and not through the judicial pen.
Yeah, and ultimately this comes down to a balance of powers and checks and balances. And, you know, it's amazing to me. I mean, you don't want judges legislating from the bench. I mean, the executive has to stay within their jurisdiction, legislative within theirs. And this judge, Anna Reyes, is coming out now saying that this somehow, at least likely, violates some sort of constitutional rights under the Fifth Amendment. What does she mean by that?
Well, you'd have to ask her to get a very clear meaning of that. And ultimately, we're going to find out whether the judges above her, or perhaps the justices above her, agree with that analysis. But this is a good reminder for all of us that elections have consequences. They have consequences in the policy sphere, obviously, and those are matters for the legislature to debate and for us as attorneys to present with argument before courts, and perhaps we'll have them settled easily that way. But also, let's remember the importance of who nominates judges. Judges matter in this country, and our justices matter as well. So many of the key issues of our day are settled so often within our courts right now. And you can dispute as to whether or not that should be the case. We're faced with the reality that it is the case. And so thankfully, we now have a president that is concerned with filling our benches with a judicial legacy, a way for our country to go forward with judges who are going to look at the Constitution and the law and follow that, and make sure that rather than trying to engineer something socially through a Constitution that is very clear as to what rights are articulated to the government and to the people, instead we will have judges and justices going forward that will follow the actual rules and words of the Constitution. And their judicial philosophy, as we're seeing here, are going to be opposite of what we've seen with Judge Reyes as well, where we're going to see judges that are going to look at actual language of statutes and that words actually have meaning and that they mean something, including words like man and woman and male and female. And so, again, let's just be reminded of the importance of having won elections here with President Trump for judges that will come after him that will be on the bench maybe 20, 30, even 40 years, that will have long-reaching consequences for the future of our freedom.
Yeah, great point. So what is the future of this order? Is it still able to be implemented? Does this thing have any future, or is it done?
Well, it certainly could. I mean, and maybe that's just the famous law school answer, which is it depends. It always frustrated me whenever my professor said that in answer to any of the questions I had in law school, but it certainly does depend in this situation. And as I mentioned, the very silver lining of this entire thing is that the judge has at least delayed implementation of this decision, giving time for the government's attorneys to seek appeal and review on appeal. Lord willing, that will mean that the appellate court will stay the decision more long term while the case is heard on appeal. And perhaps that'll take going all the way to the Supreme Court of the United States with additional argument over a period of weeks or even months before that actually comes out. So it is by far not a done deal. Perhaps yet the decision by Secretary Hegseth and President Trump will be the ultimate issue that carries the day. But for now, we can rest assured that at least it's not going to go into effect immediately. There will be more lawyering that'll be done, more arguments will be made, more briefs will be written. The lawyers will be happy to have all the fun doing all those things, and perhaps we'll come out of it on the other end with some sense of sanity, going back to what the policy of this administration has proved to be in the first early days of it, and hopefully will continue throughout the rest of its presidency as well.
Some sense of sanity. Just the sound of that sounds so wonderful. Hope we can get to that point. I want to thank you so much, Jeremy Dys, Senior Counsel at First Liberty Institute. We appreciate so much you coming on and trying to unwrap this complicated issue for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.